Hello, good evening, and thank you very much for attending. Thank you for attending OEB, and we are in our second day. And thank you especially to those who are here on site with this. Maybe we can say that we are the brave of this conference. So thank you very much. I'm going to introduce the first speaker. We have a very interesting session, how to engage students. So it's a very key topic of education. I introduce you to Ioana, Moldova from Cypher Learning. And she is also an educational technology blogger. Maybe she can explain to us how she influenced through blogging all these topics. So I give the floor to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. And thank you very much for being here. It's so glad to see so many people. And honestly, I feel a little rusty after the pandemic, and it's just so great to see you all here. So for many, many decades, for many, many years, we are so used for traditional education. So basically, we teach students the same things at the same time, at the same pace, the same learning objectives. And also, you can recognize this and as being the traditional model of education, right? So being the one-size-fits model. And I'm very used to this model because, for almost all my entire academic career, I was taught in the same way. So we had a semester, so that's about 15 weeks, right? We were taught the same things. And, at the end, whether you got like a barely passing grade or you got the full grade, like the best grade ever, we would just all move on to the same things and do the same things next semester. And so we can recognize this as being time as a fixed variable and achievement, as being very flexible, right? So not everybody learned really the same, right? So we would end up with major, huge achievement gaps, which, as I moved on and I became an adult and I experimented a lot and I also went up to teach people, I would just notice this as being a huge problem for engagement. And why? Well, at first, 1/3 of people, maybe, if I were to test them right now, they would say, okay, I am disengaged, but not because, this is too hard for me. It's just because I already know these things, right? And maybe 1/3 on the other end of the spectrum, well, they were disengaged, but for an entirely different reason. And that is because they were left behind. Some other teacher probably taught them some concepts, but they didn't fully understand them, so now they were very stressed and frustrated. And of course, we have the other third who were probably, in the zone of proximal development. So they were just the right audience for what I was teaching. Of course, in a real life context, it's not so clear-cut. Students won't just put their hands up and say, oh, teacher, I am bored because I don't have the exact prerequisites and I didn't understand multiplication really well. It's a mix-and-match kind of situation. And why this is even more problematic is because it doesn't give me the opportunity to intervene and change my lesson if I cannot understand why students are unengaged. And so we need to come to terms with the fact that one size does not fit all. The way that we have been teaching for centuries does not take into consideration students' needs, students' preferences, ways of understanding who they are, basically, and what they want to become. And so we can consider a new approach and flip this, and achievement should be fixed, right? So students should know, should achieve mastery, basically, but time should be the variable. And of course, this is not a new idea at all. We all know the esteemed Benjamin Bloom, who came up with the idea of mastery-based learning. And how did he do that? Well, 4 decades ago, he conducted some studies, And he found that the average tutor student did much, much better. So like 2 sigma, that is 2 standard deviations better than students following, the traditional, usual form of instruction. And then they said, of course, the students usually had tutoring, like one-on-one tutoring with a teacher. Of course, time was more flexible. And this showed them that any student can achieve more and can achieve mastery if they just have the right conditions. And now they said, okay, Bloom said about this that it costs societies way, way too much to do this, right? It's a huge cost to society. You cannot do this. You cannot tutor students one-on-one. It's impossible, and so on. So this idea was kind of a bit forgotten until now, until a few years ago, when it resurfaced. And that is because we have one major change happening in recent years, and that is the introduction of technology, but not just any technology. That's highly intelligent technology, and technology that is adaptive. And so this kind of technology allows us to use something called blended learning, which probably some of you use already. So by using blended learning, we let computers do what they do best. So, repetitive, boring tasks such as auto-grading quizzes. They can also show you important data. They can also allow you to create customized learning paths, right? That's what computers should do. Instead, we should allow teachers, right, to do what they do best. And that is focusing on building meaningful relationships. That is focusing on making connections, right? And also, allowing students to have those amazing, magical light bulb moments, right? Which they can only have in relationships to teacher and to the teacher and to their peers, right? Of course, we can see blended learning as a sort of GPS. So nowadays, it's really hard to get lost using this type of system. So the GPS shows you where you are going, how to get there, how, even you can check your pace, and also see different major landmarks on the road. And that is really nice. I think that's just amazing. But what if we had the technology so we can use the learning platform that function exactly like a GPS? Of course, this is a metaphor, because here in the car, the student is the driver. Well, not literally, just metaphorically. The student is the driver. They have control over what they're doing. And this type of platform shows them the way. So for example, if they take a wrong turn, the platform will just perform like the usual reroute. And the student, and lets the student know what they should do next if they get stuck somewhere, like contact a teacher or, find another lesson. And of course, this path isn't the same for everyone. It's not the linear path. This is something that any student can arrive at, right, the destination, just in different ways. Of course, you might say, okay, so you talk about the right tools, so what should we be doing to find these tools? So the answer is actually easier than you might think. So here are just some guidelines for you. For example, we can look at the useful data that the platform can tell us about student progress, right? We can ask ourselves, does the platform positively reinforce learning? And also, does it allow you to create this learning path, right? Is that possible? And also, that's very important, does it give you feedback, preferably instant feedback? And of course, does it have like an automated system that can understand how students engage with their learning content? Of course, these are just some ideas for the desired learning experience. And we have the technology, right? But do we have what it takes, like the best practices to enable this? Of course, here I'm talking about building student agency, being more of a guide on the side and not the sage on the stage. Because what blended learning does, as you know, it frees up time, actually, which is weird because teachers might say, what should we do with that time? And the answer is, you can do like small sessions. You can meet with your students one-on-one, or better yet, meet in smaller groups. This actually leaves you more time to build meaningful relationships, but you also need to trust the student that they will do the work, right? And you might also say, okay, so this sounds great, but I really don't have the time. It's really hard to modify my lesson plans. And yes, these are all very, very valid concerns for any teacher. So I just want to show you a really quick example of what teachers can do. So this is also based on Bloom's mastery-based learning. And here you can see we have the unit. So you take your learning content, your objectives, and you can divide it into separate units. Of course, it's preferred to also stack learning. And then we have the formative assessments, which means that after each unit, we need to check for student understanding and do it really well, just to see what they have learned. Of course, if my students do really well, should they stop here? And the answer is no. So they can also take some enrichment assessments, such as watching a video or reading an alternative textbook. But if my student doesn't reach mastery, it doesn't stop here. You can also help them with some corrective instructions, such as going and reviewing the lesson again, and they should take maybe an easier test, and the cycle repeats, right, until they reach mastery, and then they can go to the next unit. So I think this model is not that complicated. But you might say, okay, I need even a better example. And I agree. I want just to show you how this could work in practice for you. So this is a learning platform. And here you can see all the lessons. They have been divided into units. And here you can see the sections. And maybe you can notice this, but these are, for example, this is the written lesson. This is a video. This is a presentation. This is a discussion. So basically, there's something for everybody. Each student can be engaged in multiple ways. And of course, I think the most interesting part is the assessment, actually. We're just getting here. So this is what I can do for my students. So let's just say that they're doing really well and they get above 90%, which is great. So here I can give them a badge or direct them to another group of students to discuss further, engagement. But if they're not performing so well, that's really not the end of the story, and also the most interesting part, at least for me. The student can get a notification in which, I as a teacher connect with the student, and I say, okay, so you are on the right path. This is not the time to give up. Actually, this is the time to come see me. This is the time to review the lesson, and I can just link to the lesson so they know what they do. This is the time to go and watch a video. And also, this is the time to retake the test again or retake another test. And what this does is that basically no student gets left behind, right? So maybe for the next steps for you would be to figure out how to design this personalized learning path, how you can fit this into your lesson plans, and of course, share with others what you have learned in the session. But most importantly, I just want to leave you with this idea. If no two students are the same, right, and they all have their own personalities, their own interests, their own preferences, their own dreams, goals, and aspirations, then why do we teach them the same things at the same time and at the same pace? And thank you so much for being here and for listening.
Thank you, Ioana. Do we have any questions from the floor? Yes? Okay, maybe I can ask you a little question.
Sure.
How you deal with the student model to have all this information about what are the paths that the student needs. The undergoing model is based in any technology? Is rich? How do you handle with that student model to take decisions on new paths, new approaches for the student?
Okay, so the model doesn't necessarily have, to involve technology. It just is really hard to implement it without technology. I think, you okay? I think that's the main idea, because teachers don't really have the time to go to each student and figure out why they are unengaged and what they need. And a lot of teachers that I've worked with have told me that it's really hard to do that while in class. And that's why they prefer to use technology, because here they can see, what the students are doing. So with the learning paths, you can do actually a lot of things. So there's the thing called adaptive learning, which basically allows you to dynamically personalize content as the students progress through the classes. So that's amazing, because they can lock and unlock different content based on their performance. And that's, I think that's very important, because they don't need to necessarily see the same content going through the class. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I also agree in that engagement is, the component is very much personalization and to know the students, so I agree with you. Okay, so if there are no other questions, maybe yes, please. There's a raised hand there.
Thanks for a nice presentation. In regards to a more student-centered approach and a more blended learning approach, what are your experiences with handling or engaging with resistance from teachers and leadership in the educational system? Thanks.
Yes, that's a great question. And usually, of course, so I'm just going to say some of my personal experience. So I'm from Romania. And I actually went into a blended learning system when I started studying in Sweden. And the first thing that happened was, oh my God, I have so much time on my hands. And after a while, like really soon, I realized I didn't have time. It's just that the teachers were using a blended learning approach, and I should have been studying in the library all day. And this is the problem when you are so stuck. Even if you're young, you're kind of stuck. So just imagine the teachers, right, being taught in the same way at school and going into the system and kind of finding resistance at first for innovation. If they're, of course, I don't want to stereotype people, but if you're just a new teacher, you're probably more excited for innovative ideas. And when you find this kind of resistance, like this roadblock, is really hard. And then you learn not to change, because change is not that well. So for resistance, I can say that they have a few roadblocks that can actually be discussed and negotiated. Because, for example, with technology, they don't have to do the same, the student doesn't have to arrive at the same level at the same time, but they just say, oh no, but that's the curriculum. That's what the rules say. Where probably when you go and review the rules don't really say that. And in practice, it doesn't happen like that, because we see students getting like barely passing and see students, graduating with flying colors. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, there is a lot of resistance, but I do think, and they have, of course, these roadblocks, and then they just put them on the table. But I think in talking to teachers, we should change the approach and start asking better questions. For example, okay, so what would you do differently if you had the power? Maybe that's it. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ioana. The next speaker is Zubair Ahmad. Is section head of module development and publication of Qatar University. The floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Actually, my talk is purely related to the academics. I'm just going to present some of our research result of online education during the COVID-19. So let me start with my introduction. For example, the title is the digital transformation of informal learning practices in STEM education, especially during the COVID-19, my experience or our center experience. Actually, this program is being led by our director. Actually, she was supposed to be here, but due to some reason she could not join. And I am section head of this program. And in this program, who helped me, this is engineer Nitha. So before going ahead, let me allow the outline of my talk. So first, I would like to introduce about my center, and then importance of the informal learning program, then the digital transformation, and the statutory adopted digital transformation during the COVID-19. So before going ahead, I think many of you know about the Qatar, but due to this FIFA World Cup 2022, but maybe I would like to just have a quick introduction to the Qatar, and I would like to invite you in the 2022 FIFA World Cup there. And so Qatar is a very small country in the Arabian Gulf. It's just that if we talk about the total population, maybe the 2.2 million only. And among this 2.2 million, only maybe the 0.25 million is only the national. All others are the expatriates. So this is the main reason in the Qatar, the government is actually investing a lot of money to develop their own infrastructure, our own capacity building for the future. If the expats leave, then what will happen with the country? So this is the region. Of course, the religion is the Islam, and the area is very small area, country, very small country, and unemployment is approximately zero. So a lot of employment opportunity. Of course, a country who can handle the 2 million expatriates, it means there are a lot of employment opportunities. So let me introduce the introduction of my university. Actually, so this is the Qatar University is only the first national university. Right now we have another national university. All the other universities are the private or with other partnership with other countries. So in our university, we have the 10 colleges. We have 22,000 students at the moment, 94 academic programs we have, 17 research centers we have, and the campus size is 22,000 square meter. And the total alumni is 57,000. And we have the collaboration with the huge collaboration network. For example, we have special program for the collaboration from the government. This is called Qatar National Research Fund. Maybe many of you here heard about this one. So under this program, so there is a giant project. We do the giant project with more than 500 universities in the world. And the current the ranking of university is 21st in the QUYSC ranking at the moment. Let me quickly go through my center introduction. Actually, our center is related to the STEM education. Why this center is under the university, this is also the question. Actually, in the Qatar, as I mentioned, there is a lack of the local talent, especially in science and technology. So that's why the government and the universities take this initiative. They actually made this center to attract the student to join the university in undergraduate and graduate program, especially in science, technology, and engineering discipline. Actually, due to the lot of money in the Qatar, of course, this is the highest GDP country at the moment in the world. So many the local guys want to come to the business, economics, finance. They don't like to come to the engineering or technology and other. So that's why the special effort from the government and the university. So this center was established. So at the moment, we have trained 7,000 students. We are dealing with the 5 different research tracks for the students, and we covered almost all the schools in Qatar, government schools, that is 400 plus government schools in Qatar. And the 52 student awards during the recent years for our project we won. And 70% of our students who involved in our program joined the STEM faculty in undergraduate program and graduate programs. And till now, we have 2,000 innovative projects completed, and at international level, we got the recognition for these projects. So let me introduce the informal learning programs, why we are actually focused on the informal learning program. Of course, the formal learning program is being practiced by the schools, but we actually are interested in especially the STEM. The only way that we found that the informal learning program provide a good opportunity for the student to come to know about the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics discipline. So the aspect is this program is actually, these are the flexible mode program. These are program are being made based on the learner centers. So we look at the interest of the students. Accordingly, we develop the program and we encourage them to enroll them in this program. And the goals is, of course, are the ad hoc goals, and the learning contents are the practices, knowledge, individual implicit knowledge, and the daily programmatic knowledge base. These are the learning contents that is being developed. But of course, the development of this program is not only the one person. This is the team of professionals in the STEM education who developed this program. So these programs are being implemented based on the community of practices. We use the mentoring technique, coaching, and the knowledge sharing. So in the next slide, I will explain this thing. So especially in the STEM-based ILPs, informal learning programs. So in the STEM, as you all know, the definition of STEM is the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So integrated program. So in the STEM, actually, where we start, actually, in the STEM, we use the holistic approach. Not only from the mind of the people, we look all the aspect of the social, economics, non-minds and everything. Based on this one, this program are being made. And the second is hands-on experience is the more focus in this program. And engaging activity is the most important. Actually, to retain the interest of the student, of course, the engaging activities are the most important. And the interactive self-learning is the next step in this one. And the retaining interest, of course, all these are integrated. Enhanced scientific temperament. These are the aspects that in the STEM informal learning program is being focused. So in the method, of course, in the method of informal learning program in STEMs, of course, the first is the observation, second is the questions, then the hypothesis, then the experiment, then we go for the analysis, and then at the end we conclude this. So the two type of outcomes we are expecting from the STEM-based informal learning program. The first is the hard skill. In the hard skills, the students are being introduced with the experimental things, the analysis of the result, and the data collection. And then in the software skills, of course, the focus is the problem-solving skills, the storytelling, like the collaboration, curiosity development, and the community engagement. So as I previously explained, why these programs are more focused in the Qatar. So of course, first is due to the low population, the equality in the males and the female in the scientific research or scientific discipline is really important. The second is highly competent labor force is required to meet the goal of 2030. Here I would like to tell you the very interesting fact. In all over the world, the females are less in the science and technology. But in Qatar, females are more. It's really unbelievable. For example, in some years, we found only 1 or 2 are male in the session, but all rest are the females. So this is no for the equality of the males and female. We are focusing on the males now. We have a lot of females in the field, but the males are actually, of course, lacking. Then the sustainable outcome in the research and innovation is also the target for the Qatar for 2030 vision. This is also our focus. And of course, the investment of knowledge-based economy. All the investment is being done by the government to make the knowledge-based economy. Why? Actually, recently, Qatar is rich with the oil and gas. So of course, this is not the sustainable economy. So the government is focusing in 2030 to build the knowledge-based economy. So Of course, the COVID-19 has disturbed all over the world learning mechanism. But in the Qatar, during the last 1.5 years, the restrictions were too high. COVID restriction, I mean, this lockdown was very strict as compared to the European countries that are the rest of the world. The reason is that when the government want to make sure that this is 2022 FIFA World Cup should not be disturbed, or its date should not be changed. So everything was blocked, and as the most restricted country, it was the Qatar during the last 1.5 year. So in this, in this restricted environment, we totally lose the peer collaboration. We have no lab, even for the first 1 year, we have no physical learning space. And the lack of access to the laboratory was approximately 0 during the last 1.5 year. And lack of access to the learning resources or material. I mean, the hard resources in the library, of course, it was not accessible. Only the digital resources available were accessible. So during this time, so it was very difficult for us to maintain our pace to attract the student in the STEM education. So let me introduce what type of tracks we are doing and what did we do. Here, actually, I would like to show what practices we were done. Actually, in our informal learning program, the first track that we are doing is called, we named it as I am a researcher track. This is for the high school student, for the grade 12 student. So approximately in this track, it was enrolled 336 students. This is the research-based learning program. The second main program from our center is the Science in Sport program. Actually, why this program? In Qatari males, they love to have sport, and especially the soccer. This is, they are due to the FIFA World Cup, more interest of the students is in the sport at the moment. So accordingly, we developed this program, Science and Sport program. And this program is really for the engineering sport-based learning program. So at the moment, 250 students are enrolled in this program. This is for grade 10 and 11 program. And then our third program was I am discovering material. Why I am this program? Actually, our center was under the material science department. So that's why this is specific program for the I am discovering materials. So in this program, especially for grade 5 to 10, and 5,500 students were enrolled in this program. And the fourth program is the problem-solving program. This is the engineering design process program. So this is for the grade 3 to 8. But this was our normal practice between the COVID. But during the COVID, these programs were not possible. I would like to go quickly. Only 7 minutes are remaining, I think. So these are the few pictures of this program in the normal environment before the COVID-19. But during COVID-19, so it was not possible. Especially this program, I am discovering proper material. This is totally physical program. It was not possible. So we changed all the program to the online learning programs. And it was very successful. Let me explain the results. For example, in our first program, in I am researcher, instead of the lab-based, so we actually changed our program to the mobile application and the game development. We provide the problem to the students, the recent problem that we are facing, for example. So we have to ask them to perform the research for the 2 months with us. But actually, here we did some interesting thing. Actually, student interest in the online learning program was not too much initially. So to develop their interest in this program, we introduced the undergraduate student. Actually, the level of the grade 10 and 12 student and undergraduate student is almost very closer. Due to this peer collaboration, we found this program was very successful. Actually, I'm not going to explain all things due to the time limitation. If someone has to discuss, I can discuss later on this matter. And the second program, for example, Science and Sport, it was also very hard to manage this program online. To develop the interest of the student in this program, the strategy we applied, actually we added the sport influencer in this program. Sport influencers are the big names in the sport in the Qatar. I mean, the guys who are very famous in the sport. They joined our program, we invite them, and they joined our program. Due to this influencer, this program was very successful. This program is actually studies as a pilot project for the 41 students. So it was really successful program. There was a retention rate of 100% in this program. And then the third program, of course, due to the looking the interest of the student, we developed the ICT program. ICT is the Arduino programming and application, especially for the drone-based program or the robotics program. According to the interest of the students, school's interest, and their background, we developed this program. Under this program, there were several sub-programs. So in this way, we keep the interest of the student, and finally, in the problem-solving program, so we give the challenge to the student based on the things that they have at home. The recyclable material. We provide them the problem. We assist, our team assists them, and finally, they have to find the solution. Very interesting solution should be that so they have to use the recyclable material. So for this one. So using these techniques, using the peer collaboration, using the sport influencer, using the ICT interest of the student, and using the motivation, the use of the waste material at home. So these pilot projects were really successful. So for example, here I just giving the example of the product the student had made. So for example, few of these projects are already submitted for the patent, so that's why I would not like to explain more things about this one. So at the end, if I conclude, so in the COVID time, we use the two techniques. One is the learning on ICT. So learning on ICT means, so we develop the virtual. This is our virtual tracks. So on ICT, the application development, game development, or then IC track, Arduino programming. So we use this technique, one technique, and the other technique that we use, learning with ICT. So our the other two programs, Science and Sports, virtual track, and the problem solver, these were using the learning with ICT. We use the Microsoft Team for this purpose to teach the student. But these were directly ICT-based programs. So these both programs was very successful with us, and the retention rate of the student was more than 99% in this one. So for example, in learning with ICT, we use the normal, the curriculum. For example, we selected the force curriculum for the student, and Arduino module, pottery module. There is a specific module that is being practiced in the Qatar schools or informal learning program. So we use these programs to test the efficiency of our methods. So I think I have to quickly. So at the end, I just want to conclude that, so using these techniques, using the sports influencers, using the ICT technique, using the peer collaboration and motivation for the recycled material. So we found that these programs actually help us to building the resilience of the students, adapting the digital transformation, post-COVID competency development, and cultivate the digital literacy and the self-assisted entrepreneurial-based learning. Similarly, for the learning with the ICT, we almost found the similar competency to develop. Actually, to make for this competency, we have the pre-feedback forms or the post-feedback. We did the survey before. Based on this survey, we concluding at these things. So during this, the program, the team behind this program, of course, our director, her photos are not here. So this is me, and this is the team with me for working on these programs. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from the floor? Please raise your hand. Okay. Yes. Yes, please. Where's the microphone?
It's at the back, I think. There. Can you put your hand up again?
You mind to give to here?
Where was it?
Thank you.
thank you for the presentation and for all of your methods. Could you elaborate a little bit about how you evaluated that you increased the student engagement through these methods?
Actually, for this, we have the pre-questionnaires and the post-questionnaires. Based on these questionnaires, we evaluated. Actually, based on this questionnaire and the patent or the IP for this program is submitted, that's why I didn't disclose the pre-questionnaire and the post-questionnaire at the moment. So especially for the MOSA program, our results, I mean questionnaires when based on the questions, so more than 90% feedback was positive. And overall, beside this one, I mean direct involvement of students, we also performed the survey from the parents, the teachers, from the schools. So for example, in one case, we have the 500 schools and the parent survey. In other case, maybe we have the 400 plus. And based on this one, we concluded these results.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you again. And our next speaker is Louise. Let me see. Louise Rowland. Okay. Is Deputy CEO of UFI VocTech Trust. It's a company specially focused on vocational learning.
Hello, good afternoon, and it's just so great to be here with people in Berlin. People and Berlin, just an amazing combination, so really good. I'm going to try and juggle my slides. So really today I wanted to share with you some thoughts on these kind of key questions. How can current and future tech solutions help address the problem of learning divide, and I believe that's through the route of engagement. How do we engage learners to help tackle some of these problems? The pandemic has really exposed a growing gap between those who have the skills and the opportunity and the circumstances to be able to engage with learning and progress in learning, and those who don't. And certainly in the UK, that gap is growing from a school perspective, from an employee perspective, and from people's, and it really has a long tail of impact in terms of people's ability to engage in lifelong learning through all of their lives. And how can technology support and provide some solutions? So at UFI, we're a charity, an NGO, and we fund organisations that are really focused on tackling these issues. So in the presentation, I wanted to focus on three key questions. What role can tech play in re-engaging and motivating learners? Is there a community or a place-based model where tech can support learner engagement and increase their confidence and their long-term ability to learn? And what role can tech play in supporting confidence in more formal education settings? So a little bit about us as an organisation. So we're a charity, and we champion the power of tech to improve people's skills for work. And I've got a short video that explains who we are, just to kind of mix it up a bit and then get into the case studies. Oh, I'm going to play the video. Hopefully it should work. Here we go. So I'd hope that everyone in the room is really kind of committed to the role of tech for learning. Oh, that's our YouTube. It's gone on to YouTube. What do I do next? There we go. And we're really pleased to be here. So in terms of re-engaging and motivating learners, what role can tech play? So we've funded a lot of projects that use tech to overcome barriers to confidence and motivation. And that might be using tech to connect learners to opportunities they might not have been aware of before, using social media to direct and share opportunities with people. It can be used for collating resources and overcoming the barriers to learning that people face in terms of finding what's right for them. And also in sustaining motivation through recognised systems of accreditation. And I'll talk more about a case study where digital badging has really helped provide a framework for motivation and engagement. So an example of this is a project we've supported with the First Step Trust called Smart Pathways. First Step Trust are a charity, and they support adults who have really complex needs, who've either been through the criminal justice system in prison or have some mental health challenges to help get the skills they need for work. And for the learners here, and it really thinks about those points in the opening address about the needs of the learners and learner-centric design, the barrier of confidence and not knowing where to start is massive. So they've used virtual reality to create a virtual garage so that their learners can get some skills and confidence in a really secure way so that they can then progress onto other learning opportunities. And when they talk about their experience, those learners, in terms of being able to test and try things in a way that's safe and gives them confidence, it's so important and a key human aspect of confidence and learner engagement. I'm going to show you a video from a project we funded called Readable, and it's about teaching English to people who haven't got great English skills. It might be because they're a non-English speaker, or they just don't have really great literacy. And what we love about this project is they've used chat fiction, so they've used text-based stories to engage and motivate learners. But I shall let the video tell the story. There we go.
We were trying to find a way to overcome the motivational barriers that people so frequently face when they're learning a language, and we believe we've done that.
As someone who's worked in learning design for over 20 years, what I love about Readable is the way that it engages adult learners through entertainment. It's emotive, it's vibrant, and that works incredibly well for learners.
When we were producing these stories, we really wanted learners to come back again and again every day, just so that they could continue their learning. And how did we do that? We used themes that you would never normally find in an educational app. So we had themes like sci-fi or horror or love stories.
As a user of Readable, what happens when you open the app? What do you see? You see a stream of stories that take the form of chat messages. It's a bit like reading someone else's conversation. The stories themselves they're short, they're bite-sized, you get through them in a matter of minutes, and they have instant language support. We think this makes the stories truly readable.
Hang on. I'm in the wrong place.
We're not replacing.
I'm on our YouTube page.
Welcome to
Can you help me get back to the slides? This is another great project. This is Wild Skills. This is teaching skills for wildlife management through technology. But the tech man is going to have to help me get back to my slide deck because I'm not sure why I've come off it. There we go. Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So what's great about Readable is it's really user-centric. And for us, what we've learned at UFI is the key to engagement is understanding your users. So they really understand the problems that their learners are facing and how tech can help solve those problems. Bite-sized learning. And the other kind of key learning was that certainly in the UK, a lot of adult literacy is based on content for children. and adults don't want to be reading content for children. So this is genuinely language that adults need, and also it's kind of fun. If you go on Readable, there's some race stories in there. There's some stories about Donald Trump and Elon Musk being stuck in the toilet in space. You know, it genuinely is entertaining. And I think when we think about engagement, we have to think about what's going to engage those learners. And some of the themes this morning get over our assumptions about what the needs of learners might be. We've also funded some projects that look at how tech can support learning in communities, so either in sectors or in places, and how tech can support engagement and focus there. And I think when done well and designed well, it can be really supportive in terms of breaking down those barriers. An example is a project we funded with the Royal Society of Arts, and they took the American Cities of Learning model, and they've created a digital open badges infrastructure that helps connect people and skills to job opportunities. So there's a real incentive for you to engage and sustain your engagement with learning, because there's real job opportunities at the end. I think there's nothing worse than engaging on a course or doing some work experience or something that just doesn't really get you anywhere. And I think when we're talking about engagement, we have to be really focused on what the users of our learning can get from it. At the moment, we're really interested at UFI in the issues around confidence, learner confidence, but also the confidence of practitioners, teachers, trainers in formal and informal settings in adult education. And the pandemic has really shone a light on this. And I was really interested in your slides about the outcome of this whole process helping improve teachers and learners' digital skills and basic functional digital skills. And I think we make an awful lot of assumptions around our collective level of digital skills, and it's a real barrier to making progress in this area. So we did some research and found that learner confidence is a huge barrier. It's a huge barrier for people who have already engaged in a course. How do you keep them motivated and keep them confident? But actually, for people who aren't engaged in learning at all, confidence to start learning is just a massive barrier. And we're doing some work at the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to share more next year about how tech can engage with people who aren't even on a course. But this example here I'm going to share with you is from Century Tech, and they're an organisation we've supported who use AI and machine learning to help people in further education colleges. So these are 16 to 18-year-olds. So in England, if you've failed what's called your GCSE math, so that's your kind of high school level maths and English, and you go to college, you can't actually finish your apprenticeship or your course until you've got your maths and English. So some of the people who are trying to do maths and English may have failed their GCSE maths and English twice, 3 times, 4 times. And you can't keep teaching things in the same way if you expect your learners to get different results. So what Century Tech have done is they've used kind of AI to create personalised pathways for students who are really facing this challenge of doing their resits for maths and for English. And it's really tailored and personalised so that you're directed to the next thing that you need to learn, rather than having to trawl through lots of content to navigate your way through. And also for teachers and trainers, there's really good diagnostics so that the teachers can really focus their resources and time to fill knowledge gaps. And the outcomes this is achieving in terms of improving students' performance, are really quite significant. Half of the further education colleges in the UK are now using Century Tech. Excuse me. So some of the themes we talked about this morning in those opening addresses, for me, really play strongly to this agenda of engagement. And for me, even more important when we think about the kind of the lost learning that's happened over the last 18 to 24 months. That's lost learning in schools, in colleges, in universities, but also in companies as well. And for me, tech provides an opportunity for us to do better and to do more and really challenge some of the assumptions about what learning is and how these kind of more informal bits of learning can fit in to create pathways and routes and structures and options for students that are all a bit different. We are all different, so why would we all want to learn in the same way? So for me, the potential in this uncertain world that we're in for tech to help provide a range of tools and solutions is enormous and really significant, and it's something that we're really invested in at UFI. And if you're interested in what I've kind of been talking about or want to explore more of the kind of projects that we've funded, and as a charity, one of our goals is to spread the things we've learned so that more of it can be done. We've got a directory of all of our projects where you can see a little snippet of the different things, and there's some really inspirational stuff there around how tech can support learning. And also on our YouTube channel, there's some longer and shorter videos that have got some really great examples of the experience of the organisations we've funded. And the one thing they all have in common is an absolute laser-sharp focus on the learners who they're aiming to benefit and how tech can really be tailored and shaped to meet their needs. So there we go. That's me. Excuse me for my slight slide mishap in the middle, but adds to the fun of it all, doesn't it?
Thank you, Louise. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Let us see if we have any questions. Yes, please.
Thank you. I have two, maybe three questions. First of all, where does the funding come from? And secondly, how do you evaluate these projects, and how do you, if you do so, how does you disseminate the learning from the projects among other people?
Oh, thank you. It's a really good question. So we're an independent charity, and we have a fund, we have an endowment that is invested, and that's growing as well. And we've just actually, for interest, completed a really interesting project of aligning all of our investment funds to the Sustainable Development Goals around learning. So all of our resources are now aligned to our mission, which is quite exciting. Your second question, I think, was about evaluation. The majority of the projects we support are really quite small, and they're seed-type projects, proof of concept projects. So people will come to us with a hypothesis. Can AI help improve resits? And they will use their funding to test that hypothesis, and it either works or it doesn't work, or it might work a bit. So most of what we do is in that space. So some of the things we fund maybe don't have hundreds and hundreds of learners. It's more about user testing at alpha and beta phase. We're a small organisation and only about 6 years old, so we've now put in place a more in-depth evaluation framework around our broader impact. So we're quite interested to see where that takes us. Did you have another question, or have I answered them all? I'm not sure.
How do you sort of disseminate?
Oh, how do we disseminate? Yeah, that's a really good question. So coming to places like this. So on our website, there's lots of stories and case studies, and on YouTube as well. We're kind of 5 years old in terms of our grant funding, so it's actually only kind of about now where we've got these sort of stories to tell. So we're starting to do more things like come to OEB and other conferences, but we're also connected into, I see there's another workshop going on, I think it's MPALE. So in the UK, we've got the Association for Learning Technologies has a community of practice, so we're engaging more with those communities of practice to disseminate, and through organisations like the Association of Colleges and things like that. So kind of a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we didn't have much to disseminate, but we do now. So it's something we're doing more of.
Okay. Thank you, Luis, and thank you to all the speakers for their talks. Thank you to the audience for being here, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.